Israel, did you publish the sicha?
This is the text. 1 second. I'm putting on the chat now. I was waiting for people on the line.
Did you publish the sicha?
Here. This is the text. 1 second. I'm putting on the chat now.
Okay. We got it. You're making too much noise, bro.
I'm making music.
Okay.
So.
2 minutes are starting.
Okay.
Guten Abend.
Guten Abend. Ich kann dir nicht sehen, aber du siehst mir mit Stamme.
You see me too, ich bin in New Jersey.
Oh.
I just saw him advertise the shiur on COL Live.
Today they advertise? No.
Hab ich gesehen, I just got a screenshot.
Oh.
Ich bin behelm veheste.
Oh.
Israel, guten Abend.
Guten Abend.
Doctor, guten Abend.
Shalom Aleichem.
One more minute and we'll start.
Chaya, give it back to me.
I want to start.
So, mach still.
Is gemacht.
Okay. Okay, now we'll start. Okay, so we're learning the sicha and shaftim, chelik gedalet, the first sicha of chelik gedalet, which also fits with the project of the sichas. We're happy to do that. And we're going to learn the first sicha. And this time I'm going to mention during the course of the sicha, I'm going to mention certain things that the Rebbe wrote, interesting things. I mean, the Rebbe's Magid the sicha, so many things that the Rebbe wrote, but some things I would mention. Actually, a few of the things I even gave to print, that they print Ksav Yad, but a few things I'm going to mention as we go learning the sicha. So I'll give a little background to the psukim that the sicha goes on. It starts off, Torah says in Shoftim, Kapitel Yud-Ches, starting from test, that you're coming to Eretz Yisrael, don't learn lases kesiavas hagoyim. Don't learn to do the disgusting things the nations do. Don't have people mavir b'nei yabite beish, take through your children fire, kesim ksomim me'enim menachem nachash machashev. There are all kinds of magicians, different types. Chayil chover, chayver chover, sheilevi yedeni, deir shalamesim. People would go and speak to the dead, and all this is in order to find out what's going to be in the future. All these things. So it says, don't go there. It's disgusting for Hashem, those that do these things. And because of these disgusting things, Hashem is chasing them out of the land for you. In other words, to make the place for you. And then the pasuk says, "Tomim tiyem Hashem alekecha." You shall be tomim with Hashem your God. Now we'll touch what the word tomim means soon, but the word is tomim. In other words, don't do that. Just tomim tiyem Hashem alekecha. Be tomim with Hashem. And then the pasuk continues. Either way, here ends by end of Revi. Chamishi starts right here. And then the Torah after this pasuk says, because these nations that you're going to, you're inheriting their land, they go to these magicians. But you, Hashem didn't do it. There will be a Navi, which if you want to go to hear things, you will go to the Navi, like me, Moshe says, and you listen to him. This is the parsha. So the pasuk says, "Tomim tiyim Hashem alekecha." Zog the Rebbe Azay. The pasuk "Tomim tiyim Hashem alekecha." In the pasuk where it says "Be tomim with Hashem, your God," Ma'atig Rashi kol hakosuf. So Rashi quotes the whole pasuk. Sometimes mostly Rashi quotes in the headlines in the Yibra Maskal a few words from the pasuk. Here's the whole pasuk. It's a short pasuk, so he quotes all the words. Tomim tiyim Hashem alekecha. Umefarish and it teaches it like this. What does Tomim mean? He's halach in imei b'tmimos. You should go with him with tmimos, which means, I don't even know how to translate in English, with sincerity, wholeheartedly. It's a certain feeling that you should have. You should go with Hashem with a certain sincerity, with a certain feeling of tmimus, with the tzapaloi, and you should hope for him. I say this, don't investigate, don't dig deep into the future. Everything that will come to you except with this tmimus, which means the sincerity or the wholehearted. We know what it means. V'chulu, etc. The Rebbe writes here v'chulu because there's another piece to this Rashi, but the Rebbe does not quote it yet. So he quotes the first part and then he asks kashas. Then he says, I'll quote the second part. So he didn't quote it yet. And the last kasha is there too. But the Rebbe quoted the first part of the Rashi. So the Rebbe said, Tzorach Lov, we have to understand. Number one, Kama v'kama pomim nemer b'teira tomim. The word tomim is written in the Torah many times. By Noach it says tomim hoye b'dereisa. He was a tomim in his generations. Avraham it says, Hashem said to him, go in front of me and be a tomim. By dinner karbonis, by their karbonis it says, tomim rabbi shetzarech lista. Many times it says tomim. Rabbi Nahara 4 brings many places in the Torah where it says when the carbon, you bring a carbon, has to be a tomim. So why all of a sudden when we come here to the word tomim, which is probably 10th time the Torah says the word tomim, here Rashi has to tell us what tomim means. It's a pella. Why here? Obviously, we know what it means from all these psukim from before. Number 2, base. Prote pirusha, the details of his pirush, which is his halach. These are the words that his Rashi explains what the word tomin means. Before he asked Tam, why does Bechlali have to explain what it means? Now they said that he does explain. He goes through a whole arichas, mentions many details. His halach, you may be tmimus, go with him with tmimus. Tetzapale, you should hope for him. I see this, and you should not look deep into the future. Everything that comes to you except with mimas. So Rashi in the word tomim puts in all these details. We know Rashi doesn't say anything except pshat. If Rashi says this is what the word tomim means, Rashi feels that in this word tomim this lies. How do all these things lie in this word tomim? Another thing, Gimel. From till now it was in chat, in Teichel. Now it's a diuk in a word. Because of Nemar Haloshin, the Apostle uses a Loshin, Shayel, Deirish. He says when he speaks about the Goyim, he says, what did the Goyim do? He says, Shayel Eva Yedena. They ask these magicians, Eva Yedeni, Deirish Ala Mesim. They search into the Mesim. So it means they're looking into, uses the word Shayel and Deirish. Aber Rashi case of Tachker. Rashi doesn't say these words, he changes. Rashi says Tachker. Actually, originally when the Rebbe wrote this ha'ora, and I'll explain later why. The Rebbe wrote this ha'ora, this kasha, this whole kasha, the Rebbe wrote with Ksadi of Kedesh. Originally, actually, he wrote that Rashi is Mishane, changes from the Lashon HaPosik, then he crossed himself out the word Mishane, and he said, Ava Rashi case of Tachke. Rashi writes Tachke. So obviously, the Rebbe doesn't wrote clearly changes, but it's not called a change because he's not like talking about the same words that the Posik says before, and he changes the word. The Rebbe just asked if he's coming behemshech to what it says before what they do. So here Rashi should have written the same lashon. So the word mishane doesn't really fit, but that's what he wrote l'chtil and crossed it out. Okay, so this is kashas. These are kashas in the first part. Achakach Masayim Rashi, and then Rashi finishes off and says like this. After he writes all these details of what Tommy means, he says v'oz tia imei ulechelke. Then you will be with him and to his chelik, to part of him. That means the schar of going with tmimis, chulu, and all the details. What's the schar? What's the reward? You will be with him and to his chelik. So we have to understand. First of all, where does the Torah mention a schar for this mitzvah? It's a mitzvah. The Torah doesn't mention any reward. How come Rashi all of a sudden decides to write that there is a reward? If you do this, you'll be rewarded. You'll be with him, and you'll be his chelik. And number 2, how does Rashi know? And Rashi, everything is from the pshat of the posik that this is the schar. The schar is imei lechelke. Where does Rashi take it from? So first of all, why does Rashi b'chal bring the schar? Where does it take it say schar? And especially this specific schar. Now, Meforshim will say, yeah, we know where Rashi takes it from. The kavanas Rashi means like this. Haposik tomim tiye im Hashem alekecha nichlek l'shnayim. They learn that Rashi divides the posik. Tomim Tia these two words. And then Im Hashem Alekecho divides it into two separate things. Tomim Tiyeh hu atziv elodam. Tomim Tiyeh is the command to the person, what he should do. He's halachim bitmimus, he should go with mimus, and then all these dots means all their things. And you should hope for him and don't look after the future, and everything except kibul kabel bitmimus. That's Rasha's pshat in the word Tomim Tiyeh. And then when it says in Torah further, Im Hashem Alekecho, with Hashem your God, hu aschad. The Torah lechatchila meant this as a schar al ki matzivui. That it's a reward for keeping the commandment of Tomim Tiyeh. What's the schar? And that's what the Torah is telling. Tiyeh imay lechelkei. You will be with him, and the schar, that's the schar is in the words Im Hashem Alekecho. If you are Tomim Tiyeh, you will be Im Hashem Alekecho. That's how they learn. Now the Rebbe says in order 8, for sure you can't learn that Rashi just telling us two pshatim in the pasuk. That can be, the Rebbe says. Why? And he says because if it would be a second pshat, this inyan of Tiyeh imay lechelkei should have said dovaracha. It's a new pshat. So it's not two pshatim. So they learn also it's not two pshat. They just learn there are two parts of the pasuk. Tomim Tiyeh is the first whole arichas that he says what Tomim is, and then the Torah says Im Hashem Alekecho. Then you will be with Hashem in Tzchel. They even say a reason why Rashi has to learn that way, because Tomim Tiyeh Mishnemer Ba'Avrom Hayei Tomim V'Sulei. The Torah should have said Tomim Tiyeh. When the Torah says Tomim Tiyeh, we know already what it means. It means be Tomim with Hashem. We see by Avram Avinu. It says David should Hayei Tomim. It didn't say Im Hashem Alekecho. So you don't have to write it. So with the Torah, he says here Im Hashem Alekecho. My kamash. Why does the Torah tell? What does the Torah mean with the Im Hashem Alekecho? That's what Rashi says. Im Hashem Alekecho inyan b'fnei atzmei. Im Hashem Alekecho is a separate inyan, which is the schar kiyum mitzvah. The schar of the mitzvah. The Torah is telling us here in the pasuk the schar. By Avram, we also see that after David told him Tomim Tiyeh, he says to him, I will make a covenant with you, I'll give you a schar. Through the mitzvah, the Torah says schar. So here also, they learn that Tomim Tiyeh, the Torah tells us what you should do, and there's a schar, Im Hashem Alekecho. And it's not connected. Now, the way it was written before, when they gave it into the Rebbe, the way it was written here, that according to their pshat, Rashi says the second part, you will be imay lechelkei dover chodesh. It's a new thing, and they even added not a dover chodesh. They wrote shalei koyi adil ilmenei. It's something that does not go on what it was written before. So the Rebbe crossed out the word it's a dover chodesh. That according to them this is a new thing because it's not. They learn it's a schar, but it's not a new thing. It's a hemshech. And also when they put in the words shalei koyi adil ilmenei, that according to them it doesn't go on what it said before. Not only the Rebbe took it out, the Rebbe circled it, and the Rebbe wrote, which he did sometimes, Mavil. It's incredible. How do you even think so? Even according to the way they say, it doesn't mean it doesn't go on the Le'ilmane, it doesn't go on what it said before. It goes on what it said before. But a different prat, it's a schara what it said before. And the way it was written, that it doesn't go, according to them, it doesn't go ad the Le'ilmane. So the Rebbe circled it and wrote Mavil, and obviously took it out. But anyway, this is how they learn Pshat. The Rebbe says we cannot say really this is the pshat in Rashi. Key number 1. According to this, these two things. The first part where he says what Tommy means, you should be bitmimus and hope for him and don't go to look for the future. And then the second part, which is ostia, then you will be imel lechelke, which is the schar, and they're both for different parts of the posik. Rashi, the case of the base Dibur Hamas, Rashi should have written them in two separate pieces. First, Rashi should have quoted from the pasuk Tomim Tiyeh, not Tomim Tiyeh Hashem Alekecho, and then say these two things. He should have quoted Tomim Tiyeh. Ulafarish and explain what that means. It's halachim, go bitmimis, etc., etc. Then a new piece of Rashi with a new Dibur Hamas, with a new beginning, quoting the words Im Hashem Alekecho, Ulafarish, and to explain Osti Melchelke, that what the pasuk Im Hashem Alekecho means you will be with him and his chelik, because they're two separate things. Because the Rebbe has this klal, and it's an obvious klal, that if Rashi has two things to say on one pasuk, but two different parts of the psukim, he will write it separately. He will quote a few words of the pasuk and write what that's negated to that word, those words. Then there's another, he'll quote other words and write what's negated to that word. He should have done that here too. Since he doesn't, asimin, it's all one. And the second reason why we can't learn like these meforshim, because pashtes loshen Rashi is halachim bitmimus. Simple taich. Rashi is pushed Very simple. You have to read it the way it says. I've said many times, the word Rasha is Yoshor, straight, go straight. The way simple words of what Rasha says right in the beginning, when he teaches what it means, he says, Hisalech imei. It seems that is mashmed im Hashem alekecha kol yad alil. He's like referring to the im Hashem alekecha. Hisalech imei bitmimus, when it says Tomim tia im Hashem alekecha, then Rasha says Hisalech imei, that's he's referring to that im Hashem alekecha, that im it says in the pasuk. So it goes on before. And this is part of the commandment that you should be tomim. Like the simple pshat in the pasuk. Not that this is a separate inyan and this is the reward for doing the mitzvah. So it's another reason why it's hard to say that this is the reward and it's a separate part. And Gimel, the third kashi is al derech hapshat mashenemrim Hashem alekecha ina miyuta. We said before, their reason why they say Rasha holds that im Hashem alekecha is the schar because it's extra. It should have said tomim tia and that's it. Extra words, it means something else comes to tell you the schar. He says no, you can't say al derech hapshat that the words im Hashem alekecha is extra. It's not extra. If you look at the hemshech of the parsha, you'll see. It says before, you shouldn't be amongst you, you shouldn't find amongst you. Means all these magicians, these are all people who look for the future. So the Eibusha says, don't be with those people. And then he says, what should you be? You should be not with them, you should be with Hashem. So Rasha, the pasuk has to say that because this is the other side of the coin. Don't be with these guys who come to find out things from them, but Tommy, you be with the Eibusha. So the word Hashem is not extra in this case. Maybe you can't say it's extra, and if it's not extra, you can't say it's the schar. And another reason you can't say why like them. Maybe the word ima, you could say according to them, ima Hashem means you'll be with him. It's a schar, you'll be with the Eibusha. Rasha get the hakara in the word l'chelke. What does that mean? How does that? Where is in the pasuk a schar of chelke? The aid. So first of all, first he asks, what's the inyan? What does chelke mean? What according to schar of chelke? The aid because of the pasuk it doesn't say chelke, it says im. If that's the schar, then Rasha should have said just im. What's the chelke? So from all these inyanim, it's hard to say that what Rasha says in the second half of the Rasha. That it's something, it's a schar that's in the pasuk. It's a schar, definitely. Rasha says, then you will be, it's a schar. But it's not the pshat in the words of Hashem alekecha. That's part of the tmimus. So Rasha on his own, so to speak, seems to be adding, you know what, I'm telling you, if you do this, you'll be with him and his chiluk. Where does Rasha get this from? Rasha doesn't give him brachas in his pirush. Doesn't just say his ideas and tells you Musar that. He just, so Rasha must hold that there's something in the word Tomim Hashem Lakecha that you will be imei v'lechelke. Where does Rasha get it from? What does that mean? The Rebbe says the pshat is like this. Pirush haposhish shel Tomim b'chol mokim husholim. Whenever the Torah says Tomim, it's complete. It doesn't have to explain it. It means complete. The Tomim tia the Neach v'chenei Tomim Avraham Pirusha, but it says Neach the Eibush says be Tomim. Neach was a Tomim. By Avraham it says be Tomim. Pirusha. What does it mean? Sholem b'kiyum rotzam hakadosh baruch hu. Be complete in fulfilling the Eibush's will. And al derech zeh pirush Rebbe Meforshim gam because of the law. Even in this pasuk, most of Meforshim teach the same way. That here Tomim means be complete in keeping the mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs of the Eibush. The Tomim tim Hashem l'kecha pirusha liya sholem im Hashem. You should be complete with Hashem. So the Meforshim learn it. But Rasha doesn't. Rasha has a new thing. Al derech hapshat shitas Rasha kan yefshelu parashkin. Rasha says, here you can't learn the regular pshat, that it means that you should be complete in doing all the mitzvahs. In this pasuk, you can't say that. And that's the reason why Rashi feels that he has to type something new here that will fit to the hemshech of the parsha. Why? Teichen ha-parsha, as I said before, the whole teichen of this whole parsha, the whole flow of the parsha is Shalei lasas kadeves ha-geim, geimer, magrib nei, geimer, kesim psomim, geimer, dere shalamesim. You shouldn't do the disgusting things they do, bringing your children through the fire that David Zora did, and do the kishev and this type of kishev and searching to the dead to find out things. Don't do that, the Torah says. And Isuri Mesei Mispor Ubediyuk. The Torah mentions a specific amount, a few, and specific which Avedas the Torah says you should, which things you shouldn't do. Uka Omrei, and as the Torah stresses that we're talking specifically about these Avedas, the Torah says, Eise Eile. He says in the pasuk, anybody who would Ti'avas Hashem kol oisa eile. Anyone who does these things is disgusting to Hashem. So he says clearly, we're talking about specifically not doing these things. He also says, Ubiglau hate'evas eile, and because of these te'evas, these, Hashem is kicking them out from Eretz Yisrael. So that means that he's talking here not to do these specific things, these few things he mentions. He mentions quite a few of it, this kishav, that kishav, this kishav, but he's talking only about these. And then what does he say? Don't do that. But Tomim tiyem Hashem alekech. Now, if you're going to say Tomim means like it always means complete, it means complete means all the mitzvahs. So what the Torah is saying, don't do this and this, these few avedas, but keep all the Tayag mitzvahs. Does that make sense? Ein masim leim, but it doesn't fit to say leisa eser avedas. Don't do certain 10 avedas, for instance. But don't do these 10. But you should be careful 365 and keep 248 mitzvahs, because that's what sholem means, complete. That's not how we talk. We talk, don't do this. So we say, these are no good. If you do it, it's no good. So what should you do? Keep these mitzvahs. You should, these mitzvahs, Leisa said, don't do these things. But the way, if you type sholem, it means clearly saying, don't do these and these and these things, but keep all tayag mitzvahs. The Ramban and says, even the Ramban has a problem. The Ramban doesn't say it, but the Rebbe says the Ramban is bothered by this. How could the Torah, and the Ramban learns Tomim here means sholem. He is one of the Mefarshim that learn him means complete. So he is bothered. What does the Torah mean? Tomim Tiyah should be complete, which seems to be complete in all the mitzvahs, and all he's talking about is a few, like 10 or a few avedas. So how does he say, don't do these few avedas and be Tomim in all mitzvahs? So the Ramban says, Kavonas HaKosuv, the Posek means that Tomim Hashem b'chol leila. The Posek Taka doesn't mean here, he says, be complete with Hashem in Tayag mitzvahs. Be complete in these. Sholem be'emunas Hashem b'inyonim eilu. In these things, that's Taka complete, but not complete like normal, complete in these mitzvahs. Shalei tishmal meinin in the casement. Don't listen to them. In other words, he says, Tomim Tiyah, don't listen to them. But why don't you listen to them? She'ein kol divrei emes. Because he says, because what they're saying is not true. When they want to tell you want to find out the future, you're going to go to them, they won't know what they're talking about when they tell you. Everything under Hashem. He could do anything. He could change the whole system, the whole solar system, he could change everything. What's the purpose in going to them? Only from the Eibishter you should find out. How? From the Nevi'im. That's the hemshech further in the parsha, as the Rebbe will explain. The Kunta Ramban should be Tomim Tiyah, and then the pasuk continues, because these go to the Chashvim, go to the magicians, but by us, don't go. Go to the Navi. But why shouldn't you go to them? Because you won't find out the truth anyway from them. That's how you learn. So he says Tomim Tiyah, and these things you should be Tomim. Now, l'chura, this answers the kasha. The kasha was, how could you say Tomim be complete in everything when he's only talking about 10 mitzvahs? So the Rabban Taka says Tomim Tiyah. Taka does not mean everything. In this case, it means be complete in these mitzvahs. And the Rebbe says, in simple pshat, it's hard to say the pshat of the Ramban, because the Ramban is not pshute shel mikra only. Rashi, which is pure pshat, cannot follow this, that Tomim Tiyah means you should be Tomim in these few things that he mentions. The key Meshemer Tomim Tiyah Hashem alekech stam, since he says Tomim Tiyah, he doesn't mention Tomim Tiyah in these. Especially but before, when he's talking about not doing it, he mentions clearly, I'm talking about these. Disgusting is Eisa Eila, these. Because of these disgusting things, Hashem kicks him out. So here, if the Torah would mean in these things be Tomim, we would have said the same thing. Tomim Tiyah B'zeh, or something like that, in these things. And since the Pasuk just says Tomim Stam, in opposite, before when he talks about it, he says Eila, and here he doesn't. So obviously, if you touch the word Tomim in Sholem, complete, it means everything. Like it says, Kol mum there should be no mum. Everything should be, and that cannot be. Even the Ramban doesn't feel it could be, but the Ramban answers that you could touch it means Tomim in these. Rasha feels it can't say that. So it must be Tomim complete in everything, and that can't be. So we're back to the kasha. What does the word Tomim here mean? Can't be complete. So what does it mean? That's why Rasha says here that the pshat Tomim here is not like all over. which means complete. Ella his halich in maybe tmimus. You should go with tmimus. Tmimus means a certain feeling, a certain sense. You should go like with sincerity. It's a certain feeling we expect you to have. Alerech mashanemer Yaakov ishtam. Said by Yaakov, Esau was in the field. Yaakov was ishtam. What is ishtam? Ishtam means he was sincere. This was his style. This was a thing. It's not shleim was that he has everything. Tam means ain't a boki. After he says, but Esau went to the field. He outside. He was able to hunt. And Yaakov Ishtam doesn't know how to do that. Ain't a charif. He's not sharp to do these things that Esau did. So it's not complete that he could do things. Fakir. Elamai, what does Tam mean? Tam means a certain mindset that he had. So the same thing here. That's what the pasuk means here. Tomem Tia is a noob shot. It's not complete. That can be. You should have a complete, a sincere, we could call it wholehearted mindset. You should have to the Eibishter. That's what he says. Tomem Tia im Hashem Elokecha. And Rashi explains all the details as we'll see, which fits to this inyan. And the Rebbe says, and I will understand how the flow of the psukim is. The pasuk starts and warns us, you should not learn from them to do these bad things. You take your son to fire, different magicians. And the Torah says, Hatam, what's the reason? The Torah says, because all this is disgusting to Hashem. So the Eibishter is not saying, don't listen to them, don't go to them and listen to what they have to tell you, because they don't know what they're talking about, like the Ramban says. Because it's the Eibishter, the simple chat and pasuk is because the Eibishter doesn't want it. Not because what they say is not true. So this is what the pasuk says still now. Later on, also after the pasuk, it says, starts off these nations, they listen to these magicians. Hashem didn't give that to you. You'll have a Navi to ask questions. But the reason why don't go to them, to the Navi, it's not because what they say is not true. It's because Abish doesn't want it. That's all. It might be true. Rashi says, Hashem didn't give it to you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'shmeil ameinim el-kesmim. David didn't give you to go to the Meinim Kesmim. David put the Shechina on the Nevi'im and on Durim Betumim that they had in the Mishkan of the Beis Hamikdash. The Mela, don't go to them because that's not David. David doesn't want that. David is only by the Nevi'im. Not the reason that Ramban says Kinal we mentioned that the words are not emes. So way Rashi learns the pshat, if you see, the Torah says don't go to them because it's disgusting. David doesn't want it. That's why you shouldn't go to them. Now the fee said now that David says don't go to them because it's disgusting. That's why the pasuk has to continue. I don't want you to go there. Why? Because David doesn't want it. But you should be talking with Hashem Elokecha. Claimer, it means that even if it is true that if you go to them, you will find out the future. Rashi learns, yes, you could find out the future from them. The calls are like Tilmat Lasses, nevertheless, the Torah says, don't do that. You should be Tomim, meaning is halachin mebit mimas. You should go with mimas, and b'meila tetzapale. If you with mimas, you hope for him. But he's saying, don't go. I don't want you to go to them. It's disgusting. So you should be with sincerity to me. And what will that do? That you'll hope to me and not to them. You'll hope to me. That's what he wants. So that's what Rashi gets. That Tomim here doesn't mean complete. Tomim just means it's a certain mindset you should get. You should be turned your mind to Hashem, not your mind. I mean, your feelings should be to Hashem, and from Hashem, and not to them. And why? Because Hashem doesn't want. And you should only hope to Hashem. But then you have a shaila. They're hoping to Hashem, and you will not go. To ask them, you will not get what you're looking for. You're looking for, why does a person go to the Mechashvan, to these magicians, asking what the future is? They want to know the future. They want to know how to behave in the future. So they want to know, what is it? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen? What should I do? Now he says, don't go. And what should you do? You should be talking to Hashem. Be like Hashem wants, and Hashem wants you not to go. Okay, so I won't go. But the problem is if I don't go, and I just look towards Hashem. But I won't gain what I want to gain by going to them. which is Yediyas Hasidis, knowing the future. Ubemela Eichleis Naik, to know how to behave. So if I'm not going to them, I'm going to look towards Eibishter. Fine. But I'll miss out. And especially according to Rashi, according to Ramban, it's not a problem. According to Ramban, Eibishter is saying there's no purpose in going to them. They don't know what they're talking about. So you won't get anything. But Rashi, who learns that by going to them, you would know, they do know what they're talking about. Nevertheless, I don't want you to go because you have to look to me. So the person is going to tell you, and that's a seichel, it's a pshat thing. When we talk about seichel hayosher that might come, that's part of the pshat. How could the Torah tell me to sapale, and I'll be missing out what I want, and if I go to them, I'll get. So obviously, it must mean you should not look into the future. When it says tomim, which means go with the tmimus, means hope today. Hope today. Don't care about the future. Don't look into what's going to be in the future. So Rasha has to say that because otherwise we'll be stuck. Since Rasha learns tomim means it's a certain mindset to look into the Eibishter and not to go to them, and they really could help you, but the Eibishter doesn't want. Rasha feels that, like over the Ben Chomish Mikol will ask, because someone will learn and say, yeah, good. So you can't go to them, and you don't get and they would tell you that what's going to happen, and now you're missing out. It's a problem. So he says, well, so I'm telling you, don't look into the future. Don't investigate what's going to be in the future. Right? You can't time them, but I won't know the future. Don't look at the future. He doesn't want you to look at the future. There's still a problem. If you won't look into the future, you always worry. You'll worry, what will the day bring? We see we always worry what's going to be. So I'm going to have a worry. So I'm going to miss out. You're telling me I shouldn't. Good, but I have a worry. And the Rebbe adds here, right? It's the opposite of tmimus. Tmimus means when you're sincere, straight, good. But if I'm going to have a worry is the opposite of tmimus. So it's bothering me. So it's not sincere. It's my mind. So a person, you're telling me I should hope to Hashem and not care about the future, but it's going to bother me. But you want me to be a tomim. You have to give me the tools to be able to be a tomim. Rashi continues, he has to add these words. When everything comes to you, take the things. Anything that comes to you, meaning good or bad. Going with tmimus with Hashem, keleles gam zel lekabel, kol ma sheyovei olav meis HaKadosh Baruch Hu bein letev bein chulu. Accepting everything yet. That's what Rashi means when he says everything that will come take with tmimus. It means that even if it's bad, you should take it anyway. Which means you take it b'menucha or b'tmimus, with calm. But you won't worry. Kasha was, the guy might say, I'll worry if I don't go. Don't worry. Because if you are tamim, what are you worried? Maybe something bad will happen. Maybe if I do this, it won't be good. If it won't be good, it doesn't matter. Because if you're tamim, you take everything the Eibishter gives you. And the Rebbe says in Orah 17, Mishanemer, like it says, you shall love Hashem your God. Pirish Rashi says in the Schanon, a second pshat dover acher b'chol meitcha means b'chol midah shemeited lo. Any midah that he gives you, any way he behaves with you, you have to love Hashem anyway. So obviously here Rashi could mean that too because he said it already. Well, Loshen Razal, the Chazal used the Gemara in Brocha, the kabluni b'simcha. Whether it's good or bad, you always have to accept it with simcha. I want to mention an interesting thing here. The first time when they give when the Rebbe was Magiya the second time, he added a few lines here. First, it said only on this ha'orah. It said in the Pnim. It says that you should accept everything good or bad from the Eibishter. Accept it. So it said, like the Chazal say, the Kalbuni b'simcha, accept b'simcha. So in the second Haggadah, the Rebbe added the first part because that's from Chazal. Chazal's Gemara. We know Rashi doesn't rely on the Gemara. Rashi is only what he says, unless he brings the Gemara. So the Rebbe added these words. It says in Rashi such a thing. And earlier, because Rebbe always says Rashi doesn't rely on something that's later. And earlier, in Vaschanan already, Rashi said that b'chol meitcha b'chamida shatem shemeidet lo. But b'meile, this is what the pasuk means. So this answers everything. So the shaila is you have to hope to Hashem and l'chora, but I'll worry. Says no, if you're a tamim, you won't worry because no matter what will happen, you accept. Now that's the first part of Rashi. Then Rashi comes and adds the oz. Rashi says, you will be imei l'chelkei. So now we have to go behemshach to this. How does the second half of Rashi fit? So the Rebbe says like this. L'chura mokim leimer. L'chura, there's a possibility to say, the behemshach lo zeh, that behemshach to what we said pshat in the Rasha, case of Rasha writes the next word, and you will be with him in his chelik. So Rasha leila farach pshat. Maybe Rasha doesn't use these words to tell you pshat in the posik. After Rasha explains what tmimus is, and it's a certain mindset. Like tmimus, you look to Hashem and you don't care what will happen. You don't look into the future, and you accept everything bad or good. You accept tmimus. But the shaila is, how does that work? How could you do that? So Rasha wants to explain to us how you do it. So Rasha says, that this yediyah that we said that before takes away all the worries, like we said. He will be with the real tmim. He will be with tmimus amitis. Paket is adding. How could a person talk about with tmimis? Because you have to be ready that anything will happen good, but it's still what bothers you. So Rasha adds, I'm telling you, you'll have all good. First we said he would worry, maybe something bad will happen. We said, don't, whatever Hashem gives you. But then Rasha adds, you could say l'chura this pshat, because you should remember, you will be with Hashem, and you'll have a chelik b'meila Hashem, you'll have everything good. So you have nothing to worry, not only because if it's bad, you'll also accept it. Maybe Rasha explains that you could be bitmimis. But the Kavanas Rasha, you can't say this is what Rasha means. Because according to that, first of all, Menolan Rasha di email l'chalke. How does Rasha know it? If it's not in the posik, Rasha is just giving like a good word, telling you should know, you'll be good, all fine. Where does Rasha get is that it'll be email l'chalke. And second thing is if this is an explanation how it could be Tomim, so after Rasha goes through the whole first part explaining what it means, he should have said, Shaharei, how could you do all this? Because there'll be email l'chalke. But lay ostia, but not like Rasha says, then you will be. Then means like what's going to happen. Not telling you why I'm telling you tmimis, because this will be. So you should have said Shaharei. He's assuming that this is not what Rasha means. In other words, this is not Rasha's making up a schar. So besides the shalom where Rasha gets it from, but the idea is he's not making up a schar to make a person feel good how he could be betomim. So what does Rasha mean? So the pshat in Rasha is like this. This posik comes behemshich to the whole parsha. Now, if it's behemshich to the whole parsha, what does the posik say? The posik says, don't do these things, don't go to these magicians, don't do all this. Why? Because Hashem doesn't like it. It's the Avis. And because of what they're doing, Hashem is chasing them out of the land to give it to you. And then he says, Tomim tim Hashem alakecha. So since this is the Hemshech HaParsha, mizeh moving, so we understand the Kishem Shebglal Ateva say La Hashem alakecha meiri sheisa min haaretz mipanecha. Because of what they're doing, these things, these terrible things, Hashem is chasing them out of the land. Came the midateva lachas kama v'kama. So when the Rebbe says you should not do that, and not only that, be tomim, even though they know what they're talking about, but don't go and be tomim with the Rebbe. So obviously it makes sense that the Torah should have included here that it'll be the opposite. If by them he's chasing them out of the land because of this. So what will happen to you if you do keep this? The tomim tim Hashem alekecha. So the Rebbe says there is a punishment. So you Tomim tim Hashem alekecha, there'll be a reward, and the reward should be the same reward as they have the punishment, which is Yerusha Soretz. If their punishment is they're being chased out of the land, your reward will be you'll get the land, and that must be included here somehow. The Torah must mean it because that's how the flow of the parsha is. That's what Rasha continues. Oz meaning this is all the Torah must be telling us that if you are Tomim and you do as we said before, you will be with him and his chelik. Now, what does that mean? Rabbi asked before, what's chelke? What is the taich of the word? Besides, where does it say in the pasuk? What's the taich? So Rebbe says like this: you'll be his chelik. Chelke shalakadosh baruch hu, chelik of Hashem. Ayid is a chelik of Hashem. It's a pasuk. Ukiv mishechelik avaya amei, since Yidden are chelik of Hashem. What does the pasuk say in Hazinu? After the pasuk says Yidden are chelik of Hashem, the pasuk says, therefore, yarkeveyu al bama seyoretz. He makes you ride on the mountains of the land, which means you will get Eretz Yisrael. So it says, because the Yidden are a chelik of the Eibishter, that's why the Yidden get Eretz Yisrael. Artzei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter's Eretz, and he gives it to you. So chelke means you are a chelik of him, which means, because like Rashi says over there in Hazinu, you are a chelik of him, so the Eibishter gave Eretz Yisrael. So this is a pasuk that's written in Hazinu. So can't say Rashi relies on this only. Like Mishnah Nishnemer Leil, it says also earlier. In Ekev it says, Eretz Asher Ein Hashem Elokecha Bo. Eretz Yisrael is a land that the eyes of Hashem are there. And Rashi says, Moshe LeMelech, Moshe to a king, Shoy LeBoniv Yesh LeSodas, he had more than one child, he had children, sons, and he had fields. Asher LeBen Shoei of Nesis Sodah Chitoiv. The one that he loves, he gives the best field. And that's the Gabbai the Eden. And that says earlier in Ekev, that David loves the Eden, and that's why he gives him the best field, he gives him the best land. Ukas Cholos Parasha Zun, this parasha it says, Ha'oretz Asher of Hashem Elokecha Neisin Lacha. The Ha'oretz Hashem gives you. Right before this posik, it says that David is going to give us Eretz Yisrael. Because he says, Meirish Eisom Eretz Yisrael, Hashem kicks him out from Eretz Yisrael. Mipanecha. What does Mipanecha mean? He kicks him out in front of you, for you. In other words, in order for you should get it. So he says already giving. It says already a long time ago in Parsha B'Shalach. It says, this nation you were kainah, and bring them in and settle them in the mountain of your inheritance. And what does it mean? Amzuka Nisa, you were kainah this land, this nation. Chivafta mishar umes. You love them more than all nations. Therefore, bring them in. So this is what the pasuk means here. When the pasuk Tomim Tiyah, they do it and they're kicked out. So Tomim Tiyah, so Rashi says has to be. So it's obvious things which are obvious from the pasuk, even though it doesn't say it, not even the remes. It's part of Pshuta Shemikra. In other words, according to this pshat, when Rashi says that Osti Lechelke, Ime Lechelke, is not the pshat of the words Im Hashem Alekecha, like we said before. That's what he says in Or 18. Avalei Shazeh Pirish Im Hashem Alekecha. That's not the pshat, because we said before, this is part of the Tomim Tiyah. It is part of what you should do, not the part of the schar. And the Rebbe adds, this explains why Rashi in his pshat brings the whole pasuk. In order, what does Rashi tell us? What Tomim Tiyah means? What's Tomim here? So Rashi goes to the whole thing, what Tomim is. And we know Rashi, when he brings words of the pasuk in Dibra Maskal, only brings those words which are negated to the Pirush. So here, really, Rashi should have said Tomim Tiyah, and on that, go into the whole thing. See, according to the other Meforshim, we understand why he says Im Hashem Alekecha. Then we have another problem. He should have made it into two pieces. But according to the Rebbe, that this Im Hashem Alekecha is part of the Tomim, and when he says Ime Lechelke is what will happen to you as a reward, but that's included in the pasuk. Why does Rashi bring? So he should have only said Tomim. So the Rebbe says because of this, to show that Im Hashem Alekecha is connected. That's part of Tomim Tiyah. Like we learn Poshup Shat, not like the Meforshim that say that this is already the Im Hashem Alekecha is the reward. If Rashi would have just quoted the words Tomim Tiyah, the Geimer, then we would think like the other Meforshim that Im Hashem Alekecha that Rashi would not quote the word Im Hashem Alekecha. You just write the Geimer, just a remes. Oh, we would say probably that's the schar midah keneged miga. That's why lochem meramzon. That's why Rashi's meramis. That's why it's meramis. So lepel mamish. Rashi have to tell us that it's part of the Tomim. Rashi quotes the whole post. Let's go back. But according to this, you have a problem. So we're saying now the Eibishter says like this: don't go to the magicians. They know what they're talking about, but I don't want you to go. It's disgusting. Eibishter doesn't want it. Tomim, you should be Tomim with the Eibishter. The kasha is after this post, the parsha continues. It says like this: these goyim, they listen to these magicians. Hashem didn't give you this. I'll put up a novi, like Mishnah says, like me, David should give a novi, and him you should listen. What is mashma in the words? Mashma in the words is that don't listen to them, but you should listen to the Navi. So he said like this. That's the Hemshah. That's what it says right after Tom Hashem Alekecha. Bishleim lepirish Ramban b'chulu the Tomim Tiyah pirush li yisholim imakadosh baruch hu. Meile according to Ramban, the Tomim means you shall be complete with the Eibishter. But like Tishmael Kesem and Derish Almeis, and don't listen to these guys because these guys don't know what they're talking about. Moving Hemshach Parsha, we understand the whole Hemshach of the Parsha. Akosim avayat tamad dovah shel Eidit shel Meinanim. The Torah says, why shouldn't you listen to them? because you're going to listen to I'm going to make even Novi. Go to the Novi. The Bnei Yisrael Yishmnes Yidirshu Hasidas like they are Novi. You could ask the Novi the proof, the future. And he's telling him, according to the Ramban, they're the only ones that tell you the truth. So he says in the Pasuk, don't go to these guys. You don't know what you're talking about. Come to the Novi. Tomim. Tomim means in these things, don't do. Be complete in these things, don't do it. Go to the Novi, because the Novi will tell you the truth. The Novi is going to speak in the name of the Eibush, and he'll tell you the truth. So according to him, the Hemshech fits. According to Rasha, it's a stira to what it said before. It says like this: Tomim tia pirusha kinal. Tomim tia, according to Rashi, means like we said before. Even though they tell you the truth, because tilma. Nevertheless, don't learn from them. Kim tomim tia Hashem alekecha. You should be tomim leitach kerachalasidis. Don't look for the future, because if you go to them, you'll find out the future, and they'll tell you the future, the true future. But we don't. The Eibishas don't look for it. And take Yivlachas, and then right away he continues. Key because. They go to the magicians, and you should come, Tomim Tiyah, and you go to the Navi and listen to him, which means that you are allowed to find out the future. They Navi. It's a strange thing. First he says, don't go, and Rasha Taichas means don't go to them, even though you'll find out the future from them, because I don't want you to look into the future. And then he says, and the reason why, because I have a Navi for you. That means the Navi you could ask. Isn't it a contradiction what he said before? The pshat is like this. The Pirush Rashi, according to Rashi, Mashanemer Kagoyim Eile, Gamet, Ato Leikein Gamet, Novi Mikirbacha Gamet, all the things that it says after the Pasuk Tomim Tiyah, which is after when Chamishi starts, Ein Hemshech V'Tam LaParsha Shalafonot. That's not a Hemshech to what it says before, as a reason for before. Alas Cholos Inyan Chodesh, it's a new beginning. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yokem Novi, the Eibush will give you a Novi. That's what it is. And it's not a Hemshech. The Ramkon, the Ramban, it's a Hemshech. According to Rashi, it's a Hemshech. It starts off because, ki means because, so it runs like a hemshech. It's not a reason. See, ki sometimes means because. So it's not here because al nemer lifnei is what it's on what it says before. Sometimes ki means when. But we find in many parashas in Torah. Like even in this parsha, in the order the Rebbe says, it says in this parsha starting, it says ki ata bo al. It doesn't mean as a hemshech to before. When you will go. So here Rashi will learn this is not a hemshech to before. But it calls it lepirish Rashi. It's only according to Rashi shaderech hapshat. According to Rashi, it's pshat. And therefore, as we said before, you can't learn Tomim is complete. Not even like the Ramban completing these things. Rashi says it needs to be tmimis. Well, if he's according to them, it's a new parsha. It's a new union starting. It's not a hemshech to before. So according to the Ramana, it's a hemshech to before. It's a reason for before. And according to Rashi, it's not. And the Rebbe in order 26 actually adds, this explains another thing. Tomim Tiyah Hashem L'Kech is the end of Aliyah. A Kriya, the end. We start Chamishi here. Why do we start Chamishi here? It's the middle of an inyan. It continues. Key, because you should do this because. So, according to Rashi, we said it's not a new inyan. It's not a hemshech. It's a new inyan. According to Ramban, according to Ramban, this is the reason for before. Why are we stopping in the middle? Said by the sometimes we find these things that there's a question. What's the hemshech? Why is this a hemshech like that? Why is there a hefsek? In the aliyahs. So the Rebbe adds this derech hagav. Then he says that a sefer me'era eir Rabbi Yarmayish, the seder sima parshis, sefer darke chaim v'sholem, and he brings them in Hogya from the Rabbi Gon Chum Munkach, Bala Machaber sefer Minchas Elazar. He added these. So I just want to say how this ha'orah came. First, the Rebbe wrote part of the ha'orah. Then in the second Haggadah, he added the second half of the ha'orah with Ksav Yad Kodesh. He added the whole second half. And then the Rebbe added a few more words. And I want to say this is good to know, and someone should maybe look into this. The Rebbe added like this. He said, he wrote, Levarer, which is writing not as a ha'orah, he's writing it to the people who wrote the sichas. He says like this, I'm asking you, the Rebbe, Levarer, to find out, from Weinstock. Is there something about this in the Siddur HaGeinim that Weinstock gave out? The Rebbe said to check. The Peil Mames Mamish, the people who looked into this couldn't find anything there. So the Rebbe wanted, if you find something, to tell him, and he'll put something more, and it wasn't found. So nothing was left. Since the Rebbe wrote it, I could guarantee that probably someplace in those photos there's something there. Couldn't find. But the Rebbe wrote, Levarer, I'm reading the words again for people who want to do in this. Levarer in yesh bozeh, the Sidr hage'enim chulu, and in parentheses, Weinstock shiur. So the Rebbe said, so I think somebody who has the time and has this, a svarim should look through the whole sefer and they'll find something shaykhs to this. Because I'm sure that the Rebbe, but he just didn't have the time to look it up, so he said to look, and if he didn't find it, so it's not mentioned here at all, but that's what the Rebbe wrote in his Ksav Yad. But anyway, the Rebbe says here, so according to Rashi, this is a new inyan when it starts from here. According to Ramban, it's like a problem. Why is there Chamishi? But then he says, and by the way, this is clear in Pshat that here is a new inyan, not a hemsh, not a kigagayim is not a reason for before. Because even name of the Parshas Kagayim Eilu Hemshech LeParsha Kedemis, if we're going to say that key, but it says further, because these goyim they go to the Ma'anim Kaisim and you will have a novi. If it's a Hemshech, Lomad Lel Hachbel Eidapam Beisa Hemshech Da Goyim Kaisim Somem Ma'anim. If that's a Hemshech, so why does he start? He kept on saying before people, these guys go to the Kain and Data Shalom Mesim and all these things, Kaisim Somim. Then he starts because these goyim go to the Ma'anim. Why say it over again? He just said it, Mamish. So if it's a new inyan, yeah, by that time the Torah starts off because these guys go, I'm going to give you a novi, whatever. So it makes sense. So anyway, Pshat, this is a new inyan. So Aval Kivish Al Kaponim Mefurish Al the Novi Mutalish Lasidis, but Lepel Mamesh, the Torah does say, even if he'll say it's a new inyan, but Sof Kol Sof, he says, go to the novi and they love the Shmon. These guys, after he says go to the Kaismin, you go to the novi. He's mashmer that the novi. You could go to the Navi, which comes back to the stira that he said before, don't look into the future. Don't follow them. He said, don't follow them.
Kids, come on. I'm an expert.
You know what I'm saying?
You're telling me?
Mute out.
4 kids, 5 grandkids.
So
I'm an expert.
before he said, Al Tachker. Part of Tomim T is don't look into the future. Al Tachker. And here it comes out as a tak, it's a new parsha. But nevertheless, Sof Kosov, he says, you could go listen to the Navi, as if saying they go to them and you go to the Navi. So it seems you could. I want to mention that when the Rebbe said the sicha, as you see at the end of the sicha, it's Pasha shaped in Tovshin Chav Zayin, the Rebbe's teretz on the kasha was, when he asked the Shaila to steer, according to Rasha, you shouldn't look after Rasidis, and here it says, go to the Navi. The answer, the way the Rebbe said it then was what he says till now, that it's a new parsha. So the people who wrote the Sicha wrote that teretz. The kasha was it's a stira. First he said, don't look at this, and here it says you could. It's a new parsha, it's a new thing. So what the Rebbe did, when it comes to these words, the Rebbe, when it said this kasha, and the teretz was it's a new parsha, the Rebbe wrote these words. Where's the teretz of the kasha? How is this? In other words, the Rebbe is saying how this word that it's a new parsha will answer the kasha. The kasha was as a stira. First, Rashi said, like the Altach Karach Asitis, don't look in the future. And then later, the Pasuk says that the Navi, you could ask the Navi. The stira. So he gives a teretz, it's a new parsha. So, but the fact is still a fact. Teretz says a fact, go to the Navi. So the Rebbe wrote, where's the teretz? And by Fabrenga, the Rebbe didn't say the teretz. He said the teretz, but he said this and didn't finish off. And a lot of times there's the sicha the Rebbe said and expected that you'd understand yourself. So the Rebbe asked, where is the teretz of the shaila here? And the Rebbe added the last paragraph we just learned, and the next paragraph. This paragraph, and the next paragraph. He added. And these are the words he said. But Sof Kosov, it says you could ask Hasidus. The Gambik Suvim did don mashme b'chol could. And here, even in this, in our Pesukim, it says, the main problem because the magicians are doing it. But Lepel, the Etzem, by a Novi who is not a magician, Chas v'sholom, you could ask, so it's Vestira, the Parsha Akademis. It's the Stira, the previous Parsha, which says, Al Tachke. That's why Rashi writes the word Le Tachker. And the Rebbe Shaila was, it's a shin, here says it's a change, Because in Posik Gabet Goyim it says Deire Sheil. Why does it say Tachke? He tells you that lay Tachke Dafke. You can't be Cheke. You could ask a Novi. Chekire means Hameir al Daiga Yisera, means you look into your Cheker, you investigate. That means you're worried. That not. Hashenk is Shaila Ba'alma, Vafila Drisha. But just to ask it, even to look into it, you could. So you could ask a Novi. And that's the answer. And I believe this is why the Rebbe added the Shaila. I said in the beginning, Kasha Gimel, he's added, why does Rashi use the word Tachker, not Sheil and Deirish? It's all because to get to the Teretz. That's the Teretz, the Shaila. That's what the Rebbe added. And he left it out by the Farengen, for why I don't know. But Lepel Mamashiri added this. So he added this paragraph. So this is according to Rashi.
So the Choi could say that this is a Hemshech Echad, according to this Pshat. If the dik is al Tachker, so maybe it's a Hemshech Echad.
Lepel, it's not.
Maybe it's a
That's why the Rebbe wrote, it's not only because of that. It's not. Okay. The fact is, it's not. So that makes it better, but it still doesn't answer the kasha. See, if it's a hemshech, his mamish, he's telling you two opposite things at the same time. He's telling you, don't go, but go. That makes no sense. So the Rebbe weakens it by saying, no, he's not doing that. He tells you, don't go. Then he tells you later something else. So he's not telling you, astira b'basacha. Nevertheless, the kasha is still a kasha. Kasha is sof kol sov, you could go, and here it says you shouldn't go. So the same thing would be a stira to what it says in Parsha Bamidbar. Would be also a stira. But the way it was before, the stira is even bigger. He's telling you at the same time, don't go. But you could go. Don't go to them because I don't want you to think of Asidis. And now go to the Novi. So the Rebbe says, first of all, Hanu Parsha. That's weak, making it weaker. It's not a stira Meneyu Bay, but it's still a kasha. So the answer is L'kachke. Shenken al Ramban, according to the Ramban, She'ein Pirusha Pshuta Shel Mikradavke, the Ramban doesn't go normal pshat. Pirish Tomim, so Tomim is touched differently, Sholim, complete. That's why he says Tomim B'choleila. That's why he says Kanal Siv Gimel like before. Tomim means complete, but in these things. It says after Tomim Tiyeh, that the Goyim go to the main and you go to the Novi, he says it's a hemshech. It's a reason. Ki means, according to the Ramban, because. And this is the Lashon that he writes. He'll bring a Novi amongst you, eat and water befiv, and the Eibishter will put his words in his mouth. You will ask him, you will hear from him what the Eibishter is doing. When you look for the future, you won't have to look in the future by the caseman. They don't know what they're talking about, it's not true. They won't be able to tell you what you need. And everything will be true. So the Rabban learns it's a hemshech. Rashi learns it's not a hemshech. So number one, it's not even hemshech. He's not contradicting himself. According to Rabban, it's not a contradiction of Adi because he's telling you they don't know what they're talking about. Go to Novi. That's fine. But Rashi says it means don't ask. It's a contradiction, but it's not a stira minei ubei. It's not a contradiction itself, but nevertheless he answers it. But the pale is the shaila. What happens to Akim when there is no Novi? If there is no Novi, according to the Ramban, if the whole reason he says don't go to them because I have a Novi, what about if you don't have a Novi when there's no more Nevi'im? So in order 28 the Rebbe says, Avo movement shebecholei from Gamla Ramban, that he says Yokem Agayim Hutam, yeah, you can't go to them, and you can't go to them anyway, obviously, because they don't know what they're talking about. But maybe I look into Asidis other way. So he says, no, you can only ask a Novi. And if you don't ask, if you know Novi, the Rebbe says, and he brings the Shulchan Aruch and they say Caleb. Okay. So this is all how we answer the Rashi and the difference in the Rashi and the Ramban, etc., etc. Rashi always has a lot of halacha is like this. And this mitzvah of Tomim Ti Hashem Alekecha is a plukter the Rambam Rambam. The Rambam and the Ramban and Nimni B'Mina mitzvahs if you count them into mitzvahs. A Rambam Le'Hevi B'Sefer Mitzvah Shalei. The Rambam doesn't count it. But we know there are 630 mitzvahs. There are certain rules which things are counted in the mitzvahs or not, and them as there are more than 613 times what it says in the Torah do or don't do, but not everything is counted. There are certain rules. So the Rambam does not count this mitzvah. Ramban b'asagei said money. The Rambam does count it, and he says loshen shenitztaveinu liis levaveinu tomim imei yisborach. That we recommend it to be our heart should be tomim with Hashem. Messiah and the Ramban finishes off. Ulai choshev arav. He's explaining why did the Rambam not count it. The Rambam holds shitzavo kilelas hamitzvahs. We know one of the rules is any mitzvah that includes all the mitzvahs, much when the pasuk says, keep all the mitzvahs. So it's a commandment, but that's not part of the minyan mitzvahs because it includes all the mitzvahs. So the Rambam says that Tomim Tiyah also includes everything. It includes all the mitzvahs, l'leches v'darkater, to go in the Torah. L'lochen lehevi v'cheshbein, that's he brings this cheshbon because it's a mitzvah klolis. Now the shaila is, what does the Ramban hold? Could be the machlekes. The Rambam and the Ramban is possible how he touched Tomim Tiyah. And this is how it goes. Kosav Rambam, the Rambam writes, the Tam Kol Yisurim Eil, and the reason of all these prohibitions that you can't go to the mechashvin, to the magicians, etc. He writes like this: the Dvarim Eil Kulam Divrei Sheker because of him. They're all lies. Ein royal Yisrael Shem Chachamim Uchotomim Lahamshe Ba'avolim Eil. Yidden who are smart shouldn't go with the stupidities. Baalei Chochmah Utmimei Adas, smart people, Yedu Berayas Brura Shekol Eil Advarim Uteva Hevel. Smart people know that all these things are narishkeit, stupidity. Shenimshuk behem chasrei adas. Today to mention, not normal people went to logical dark chemists. People, stupid people, followed them, left the true way and went to them. That's what the Torah said. When it warns you against all this, Tomim Tiyah Hashem Alekecha. That means this is stupid. People who don't know das think that they're good. And the Torah says Tomim Tiyah. So how does the Rambam learn Tomim? Hainu means Rambam mefarish the Tomim Tiyah inyon tmimus v'shlemas hadas. First, your mind should be clear. It should be a complete mind. Don't be stupid. That's how he teaches. But Mela movement should see the Keilel. The Mela, we understand what the Ramban means that he holds, that it's a mitzvah that contains everything. Sharei Teichne, what is the Teichne of it? Lias Tomim v'sholim b'dasim Hashem Alekecha. Your mind should be complete with Hashem. And B'Mela, what should happen? Shazel Keilo Kol Tzivu Yakadosh Baruch. It includes all the commandments of the Eibishter. Therefore, even though the Pasuk Tomim Tiyah is written here concerning not listening to all the stupidities of these magicians, the meaning of it is shaykhs to all the mitzvahs. Because it's like it means your mind should do seichel. You should have seichel with the Eibishter. That's what seichel should be. It happens to be written here. And the Rebbe in the Ha'orah goes in that the Shaila, where do we get the Isser of not going to them? Could be it's from here. But that's also only a result from Tomim. Tomim Matiyah is a klolos the Gezach, that your mind should be smart, that the Eibishter's things are right, not what they're doing. So that's a klal. Now the Ramban, he said what it means is our mind should be miyuchat to the Eibishter, to believe that he does everything. Only from him we should ask for what's going to happen in the future. Because he could change the stars and the solar system, etc., etc. So according to that, ain't it tzivuk kelo? It's not that tzivuk for all the mitzvahs. This Tomim Tiyah. To believe in the Eibishter is something cloud for all the mitzvahs. But the Tomim Tiyah here means the emunah that you have in the Eibishter versus these things. It's not something negated to all Torah mitzvahs. The could change the system, the solar system. That's why you shouldn't go to ask him. So this is a specific mitzvah. Don't ask these people things because you should have a munah, they should do what he wants, and they don't know what they're talking about. So it's specific to this. According to the Rambam, it's not specific to this. It's b'chal your dash should be tomim. So the Rambam holds it's in quality. So it's not part of the Taryag mitzvah. The Ramban holds it's a specific thing has to do with these things, and like he says in here in Parsha that you should be tomim b'inyonim elu. You should be what? Your mind should know that you have to be tomim with the Eibishter, the gaba these things. So it's a specific thing. But the Rashi, which is Pshutei Shel Mikra, the Tomim who Loshen Shalom Elam Loshen Tmimis, here it's Loshen Tmimis, Hari Poshet Shuzui Mitzvah Pratis. That's a pratistic mitzvah, for sure. We're just saying how you should be going with the Eibishter, not that you should keep all the mitzvahs. It's telling you a certain mindset that you have to have. That's a pratistic mitzvah. There's a certain mindset, you have to have a certain sincerity. He's giving us a mitzvah of sincerity. That's what it is. And therefore, Nimyan, mitzvahs. It fits in the mitzvahs. So Rashi learns Tomim means, like he says, that you have to accept the Eibishter b'tmimus. So even though it means all the mitzvahs, but it's not telling you to keep all the mitzvahs. It's telling you, be sincere. That's a tzivut Eibishter says, what you should do. You should So this is Neisev ala mitzvahs leisas shalifnezah. This comes in addition to the mitzvahs leisas Leimotze b'cha kesem, kol min chekei all those that look for the future, that's the place. But besides that, there's a general mitzvah of sincerity, and that's a mitzvah protis, of being sincere with the Eibishter. But mainly you will not look after Hasidus, etc., etc. And the Rebbe adds, then you'll be with him in his chelek. And then the last paragraph, the Rebbe wrote B'Ksav Yad, added the last paragraph, and he wrote, maybe you could say that Leikiyim leimotze b'cho, game it, avas havaya. See, the Psukim has a few protips. So by keeping this part of the posuk, that you shouldn't be amongst you shouldn't find amongst you those who do these things, which is a disgusting thing to Hashem. For that, the schar is tia imei. If you don't do things disgusting to him, you'll be with him. Because you got and then the second part of the next words of Rashi, and you should hope to him, and whatever happens, you accept it mimis, then you'll also be part of his chelik. He doesn't touch you as it means, but that's what the Rebbe wrote in the many other things he wrote, but I'm saying here the whole paragraph the Rebbe put in as a sof to this sicha. So now we see everything, how it fits, mamish like a puzzle, and every word in Rashi. Okay. Stofar was.
Good.
Ja, gute Nacht allemaal.
Gute Nacht.
I greet from New York.
Good, oh, good.
I greet from New York. You're not from New York.
Oh, so is gebeten, alles good.
I'll tell you about it another time. I'll remind you.
Good.
Sehr good. A gute Nacht.